In the first movie of Madagascar, towards the beginning as we watch Martin and Alex giving their shows at the Central Park Zoo, we are introduced to the penguins, a group of flightless birds who are pretty much Mission Impossible level agents. Except for Private, he's mostly there for emotional support, I guess.
We're digging to Antarctica.
They consider themselves to be the best special ops team in existence. Yeah, they're basically psychos. The first scheme that we see them carry out is in said introduction, when they are making an underground tunnel dug with plastic spoons to reach the open fields of Antarctica. But here arises the question of if it is possible to dig a tunnel between the Central Park Zoo and Antarctica only with plastic spoons. To answer this very crucial and vital question, we should see what the movie tells us about the tunnel. Unfortunately, there are only a few scenes of their master plan. The level of gatekeeping of some, the most they arrive is Marty's habitat. However, our highly affected little friends achieve their goal by hijacking a ship instead of using their tunnel, as we see later in the movie. Cause we all know that stealing someone else's property for our own purposes is hilarious.
We killed them and ate their livers.
The logistical information about the excavation that we need is a lot of parameters to take into account if we want to make a tunnel of this magnitude. Like how wide it should be, if they have thought of a way to maintain an internal structure to avoid cave-ins, what kind of spoons are they gonna use, what will be the depth, and all that kind of stuff. This is why we should appreciate and give a little more love to those humble drug dealers. That was quite the effort. We know that they want to go from Manhattan to Antarctica, and in a few seconds that we see over their plan, some things are revealed. We know that it is a relatively wide tunnel, since 4 penguins fit at the same time. In fact, we see that of those 4, 3 penguins dig simultaneously. The complex mechanism they use to remove all the material they dig is probably just Private running from one place to another with loads of dirt. Yeah, that sounds accurate to me. In the scene where they caught locking this little kid, they stole his large plastic spoon. That's gonna be our fun musket tool that will help us achieve our goal. I mean, honestly, I don't know if this is better than trying it with our bare fist. About the problem of the internal structure, they had it in mind, since Skipper mentions that they need more shovels and also more popsicle sticks, as they don't want to risk another cave-in. From that logistical information, we can assume that many children will be taken away from their belongings in the near future, and that they will not end up too deep, because an underground structure of popsicle sticks is not the best option to support weight. That means that nope, they will not reach the most problematic layers of the earth. They won't dig down enough for them to fight Mr. Nada. But talking of the layers of the earth, our planet has an internal structure made up of different layers. They are from shallowest to deepest, the crust, the mantle, the outer core, and the inner core. The deeper it is, the denser of the composition of that layer of the planet is. The crust, a relatively thin layer, with an average thickness of 5 to 70 kilometers. It has a density of 2.2 to 2.9 grams per cc. This is basically a mining guide at this point. The inner core has a density of about 13 grams per cc. That means it has a composition about 6 times denser than what we see on the surface. For this reason, it is obvious that the best way would be to make a tunnel in the crust. Despite at first glance, it would seem better to dig a hole directly through the earth, cutting a lot of miles or kilometers in the process, because the earth is round, and I don't want to hear that the earth is flat! But such digging would easily reach the inner core, and also keeping in mind that they're not using the strongest tools, plastic spoons, popsicle sticks for the structure. You don't need a mining expert to tell you that their best bet is to dig as little deep as they can. So we will take into account the density of the upper section of the crust when making our calculations. Like the video if you think after watching this you will love miners more. Mine workers too. On the other hand, the distance is not just a chill walk to the grocery store. A straight line on the surface between Manhattan and the closest point of Antarctica, Elephant Island, marks more than 11,000 kilometers or 6,835 miles. To put that into perspective, the longest tunnel in the world is the Delaware Aqueduct, with a length of just 137 kilometers or 85 miles. It was built between 1939 and 1945, which by the way were the same years as the Second World War.
I am Adolf Hitler, Commander
the Third Reich!
In contrary to popular belief, nope, they didn't use plastic spoons, but the metallic ones instead. With this information, we can be sure that an 11,000-kilometer tunnel will take much more than 6 years to complete. It would probably take the same as what it takes them to release GTA 6. But let's make some preliminary calculations. And the easiest way to do it is to assume that penguins will dig a cubic meter at a time. That is, at the end of the tunnel, 11,000 kilometers long or 11 million meters long and 1 meter high. Now, how will the special forces do it? Knowing that in the USA a large spoon can usually contain 15 cubic centimeters and that we are lucky enough to have 3 large spoons at the same time, we know that they are synchronized, because they for sure are. They could remove 45 cubic centimeters of material with every each synchronized action. If they don't get tired, they could do 1 scoop per second. It would take them 6.17 hours to dig a single meter of the tunnel, or 7,742 years of non-stop digging for the complete tunnel. Wow, that sounds like a severe case of PTSD. If you want to make the tunnel narrower, because that's something they would probably do. Plus, it sounds great to have to cuddle up together with a crew of miners. I mean, if we had half the volume, that is 5.5 cubic meters, and that would take them 3,871 years. And that's assuming they don't get tired and have a constant supply of spoons. I have faith in them. However, still assuming they have unlimited time, there are other problems. Obviously, they would come across a lot of rocks and roots. They could dig around or simply shovel their way with the spoons. What? You think that doesn't make sense? Well, in the first scene where we see the penguins, they had drilled a hole in the concrete floor of their habitat. Although they probably broke through with some weird item that Rico's got inside. That boy is more armed than the average person in America. Also, there's this small issue whether they'll actually choose to dig through a section of the Atlantic Ocean. It's obviously more direct to go under the ocean, but the ocean crust is a bit different from the continental crust. It has a higher density, about 3.1 grams per cc. Basically, it's not the same. It'll be more difficult. There are also unexpected problems, like water or oil deposits, or even gas bubbles, because if you find a single drop of oil, in less than 2 seconds, you'll find yourself surrounded by the United States Army, ready to colonize. Finally, there's the lack of oxygen, the lack of food, the lack of light, and a lot of vital logistics so that our penguins do not, die. So, how do we solve this lacking of structural integrity? Is it even possible? If the goal is to finish that tunnel no matter what...
Mason, you gotta keep your shit together. Let's come in.
They could stay for almost 400 penguins generations digging, assuming they go under the sea. If they decide to go under the continent, which is safer, it would take them even longer, since about 5,000 kilometers are added. Not the smartest option if you ask me, because it'll take them 4,000 years, and penguins only live around 20 years. Yeah, that's a horrible idea, and I don't know, I feel like you can use that time to great things, like dancing or whatever. The penguins know it anyway. What's more, their plan was never to get there digging. Otherwise, can you imagine all that effort to arrive to Antarctica only to have this reaction?
Well, this sucks.
If we analyze the 2 scenes where they talk about their plan, we will first notice that the only one that says that they're tunneling there is Private, and we can easily tell that he's not very clever. In fact, when Skipper asks Kowalski for a progress report, he says that they're 500 feet away from the main sewer line.
We're only 500 feet from the main sewer line.
He doesn't say that they're close to leaving Central Park, or when are they gonna cuddle up or something like that. He says that they're close to the underground sewer infrastructure of New York City, which is honestly a better plan. But it requires to have some balls, because it must be really scary.
Hey guys, I'm in New York City just hanging out.
If they just dig to a pipe, this drug dealer type skate beat shouldn't take them more than a few days, and once there they can escape through other means. Let's talk a little about the next stage of this big brain operation. They open a hole by mistaking Marty's habitat towards the afternoon, and several hours later, when all the animals are in the Grand Central Station, we could see that the penguins are there too, hiding behind a newspaper when the police did a complete raid. It's not explained what they were doing there, but most likely part of the scheme was to use the subway, because they are chill like that. So their plan was never to dig to Antarctica. That was what Private understood. And from the NYC subway, the journey to Antarctica would begin, surely full of illegal acts. So to answer the question of the video, yes, it is possible, but you can always steal a cargo ship. It's more hilarious.